Bungie has just gotten a new vice president, and we're here to break down the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have the news story here. Justin Truman is now VP of Destiny at Bungie. He previously served as the studio's chief development officer. He replaces Mark Noseworthy, who reportedly left alongside Luke Smith following the cancellation of Destiny Project Payback. Now, your first impressions, you might be thinking, what was Project Payback? I don't remember that ever being something talked about too much. It was a very small incubation project that was meant to be a third-person game in the Destiny universe, but it was canceled for, wait for it, Marathon. Yes, really, it was canceled for Marathon. So now the community is wondering, is this good news? Is this bad news? What do we make of Bungie's new VP? And of course, the first thing people are going to jump to is this viral GDC conference that he was involved with a few years ago, where he talked about over-delivery. And, well, I'll play the clip and we can watch together.
Remember back when I said that box products are in the business of over-delivery? Over-delivery is actually dangerous for a train station. With every release that you put out there, you're setting a pattern for your community and for your players. And so if we release an expansion with 2 raids, let's say, next year, our community is gonna be upset if we go back to only 1 raid. We've hurt the station by making a rogue decision on just one of the trains to over-deliver.
So yeah, apparently 2 raids a year is considered over-delivery by Bungie and by our new VP now, which of course frustrates a lot of Destiny 2 players because we were enjoying more content, all right? More is better always when it comes to Destiny 2 content. And while Bungie was invited to speak at this GDC conference to weigh in on their opinions of how to successfully run a live service game because they've done so well within this market, I do think that they've made some oversteps in this presentation where they don't really address what does under-delivery look like, right? That's what we've been having to some degree in Destiny 2, and it does lead to apathy, and it leads to lower player population, and ultimately it can lead to the death of your game. So I think that over-delivery, while I guess it can be a problem for crunch time and for devs inside the studio, under-delivery can literally kill your game, laying off everyone from your company. So let's look at the other side of that before we jump onto the bandwagon of, keeping healthy work-life balance for game devs, etc. But is it all bad for Justin Truman? Is our VP going to take our beloved franchise and run it into the ground? And I'll let you be the judge. He also went on to say, we did a full reaction of this, by the way. If you want to watch the reaction to this, it's down below. It's an hour and 40 minutes. We're not going to go through all of that exhaustively. He also said here where he was the guy who talked about how in Destiny 2 Year 1, they had performed so poorly that they were about 1 month away from shutting the doors on the game entirely. And so he actually presented to us some of the most honest Destiny experiences ever from a dev side of things. No one ever really wants to talk about how poorly their game performed or how bad they did or how much they sucked during a period of time, right? No one wants to admit defeat and admit failure, but he actually did this. And I think that this is very admirable, and I would hope that we see something like this from some of the devs at Bungie in regards to Marathon, because the pushing the narrative that this game is just doing so well and we can't wait, this game is going to be received to such a big successful launch, is, in my opinion, toxic positivity, and is going to lead to the game looking a lot like this graph right here. And I don't want to see that. On top of that, we also got a bunch of other interesting things from this, good and bad. You can decide down in the comments below, where he said that velocity is more important than position. So what Bungie was doing in Destiny 1 was delivering a box service game, which is you get the game and it's done. Bada bing, bada boom. You paid the money, it's over. Now, of course, they've transitioned from Destiny 1 being box service to a live service model where every week or 2 weeks there's an update and it brings new items to the game. It brings, some sandbox changes, you name it, right? Eververse cosmetics, right? All of that. We're used to this model now because we've been doing this for so long, but it used to not be that way. And position was considered so important, right? And a lot of people will talk about velocity over quality. And a lot of people roasted him for this topic right here, saying that if you're so focused on the speed of the game and new update, new item, new weapon, new activity, then where's the quality of these games? And we have seen some diminishing quality in Destiny 2 in some ways. Obviously, Crucible and cheaters, and I mean, Gambit hasn't been touched in how many years, so velocity isn't always the #1 winning attribute here. A lot of people were roasting him about this particular instance. This is really the only thing we have to judge our new VP from Destiny is this GDC conference. He hasn't really spoken a whole lot publicly, so we'll go through a lot of the different main talking points he had here. He said, launch is the beginning of your journey. And this was really interesting, where you can launch horribly and adjust. We have seen this, obviously. No Man's Sky is probably the most infamous example of a horrible launch of a game. I mean, has there ever been a game that did worse than that one, right? I mean, maybe Cyberpunk by comparison, but it actually came back, right? Unlike Anthem that launched and was a failure and never came back and was ultimately canceled completely. Launch is the beginning of your journey, and your launch can actually be a poor launch as long as you continue with that velocity, which is kind of a crazy concept because I think that's what Marathon is thinking. I think they're cooking up with Marathon where they know that their launch is about to be bad, or at least to mixed reviews. At the very least, it's mixed reviews, right? And then they're expecting to maybe guide it and take it and make it successful. We'll see if they're able to pull that one off. I think that will be a very interesting thing. And it also shows what Bungie's approach is behind the studio, behind closed doors. They aren't really worried about the launch of Marathon being terrible because they have probably a long-term plan. Like I've mentioned before, they probably have like a 3-year plan with Marathon to give it continuous updates and continuous content. So that way, even if it's a terrible launch, which it would seem like it might be, it maybe can slowly grow and build an audience over time. Only time will tell if that's a successful strategy and if they'll actually be able to pull it off, though. One of the other interesting talking points he had was after they had their massive fall off and they had done all of their sunsetting, or actually it's not sunsetting, this was D2 year 1, right? They had to turn off all of their monetization things. They had to turn off a lot of Eververse stuff because they wanted to first gain their trust and then gain retention and then gain revenue. And ultimately what he talked about as well is that the worst thing you can have for Destiny 2 or for any game, because he's speaking to a huge audience here of people that are developing video games at GDC, the worst thing that you could possibly have is apathy, people uninterested in your game, which I would say is probably the #1 talking point for Marathon right now. We talked so much about how Marathon's population during its alpha was so ridiculously small, how they had lost, even though they had only invited a small selection of people, they had lost well over the majority of those people were not playing Marathon after just a few hours. They weren't interested in coming back, even though it was a 2-week-long alpha, and they even added some updates in the middle of it. Marathon does have, at this point in time, near complete apathy. There's very little interest in it across the board. I wonder what they can do for that. Obviously, their goal would be first trust. So this is going to be their next live stream that Joe Ziegler has announced. He's the game director for Marathon. He's announced that they're going to do a live stream very soon. And this is going to be their strategy. They're going to try to build trust with you towards Marathon. They're going to try and say, hey, we're going to do some things. We're going to make some adjustments. They're probably going to turn on proximity chat. Some of the things that people have almost demanded for this game in order to make it successful. I'm sure that they're going to work towards that. The trust will come, and once eventually, if they can get any trust from Marathon, they'll work on retention and then ultimately revenue and, cosmetics and stuff in the game, I'm sure, right? This is going to be Marathon's strategy in general. The next slide we have here was that Bungie actually changed their entire philosophy during this period of time, and I thought that this one was really interesting because their philosophy used to be, we make games that we want to play. I remember when I was invited to the Bungie studios, I walked past this door and I read the sign and I thought, what an interesting icon. Wouldn't you want to make games that the world wants to play? But, they wanted to make games that we want to play. That was at least their motto for a very long period of time. They changed that motto, in fact, and it now says we create worlds that inspire friendship. Let me know what you think about that down in the comment section below. And let me know what you think about Bungie's new VP. That's a wrap on this one. Make sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all the news in Destiny 2. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.